Hi, my name is Anya. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. Today is a tough subject. We are talking about the most innocent in our society, our children. This is a tough, disturbing and a bizarre one. I tried to unpack and put all of the information into one essay. I filmed it 3 times and I couldn't get it right. So I decided to divide the information into 4 parts. This is video number 1. It's important, so please watch the full video. Being an essay, you can also listen to it as a podcast. Okay, let's go. NAMBLA is an acronym that stands for North American Man-Boy Love Association, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The North American Man-Boy Love Association is a pedophilia advocacy group in the United States. Let's go through some terminology. Hebephile. Hebephilia is the strong, persistent sexual interest by adults in pubescent children who are in early adolescence, typically ages 11 to 14. Pederast, an adult man who is interested in boys, typically over the age of 12. Grooming. Grooming is when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child, so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. Boy lover. This is NAMBLA's only too cute word to describe themselves. Noun. Boy lover, a pedophile or hebephile who's attracted to boys. Using the term boy lover irks me. It turns my stomach. But it is important that we understand how these predators are playing with words and pretending that their agenda is innocent. I will use the term so that you can see how sinister this side is and how sick these people are. Let's have a look at Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary definition, and we love us some Urban Dictionary on this channel. NAMBLA, they are a group of men over 30 who like to date, have sex with underage boys. They like to use evidence, like how in ancient Greece this sort of thing was tolerated, to try and support their movement. Many people don't even realize the group exists and assume it was something made up for that episode of South Park, which unfortunately is false. And this is the website. But before we do a deep dive, let's talk about one of NAMBLA's co-founders, David Thorstad. More like David the Demon, David the Devil, or Disgusting David. Anywho. David Thorstad, born in 1941 and luckily died last year in August of 2021, was an American political activist who co-founded and ran a number of gay rights groups following the Stonewall riots in 1969. I'm not going to talk about his activism in the LGBT community because we are not here for that, nor do I care. Whatever good he did is, in my opinion, completely invalid after he founded NAMBLA. Thorstad described himself as a bisexual pederast. He said being a pederast in the United States was like being a Jew in Nazi Germany. The fucking audacity. He wrote a book of his bullshit opinions. I read some of the drivel. I read 4 pages and that was plenty. Let's have a little look at this garbage. Boy lovers were involved in the gay movement from the beginning and their presence was tolerated. In 1977, the issue of sex between adults and minors moved to center stage. A new hysteria about kiddie arose, fed by the political right and the feminist movement, with unmistakable suggestions that gay men who loved boys were in reality exploiting and abusing them. It didn't occur to draw a distinction between being raped or molested and enjoying sex, or to point out that underage males frequently enjoy and seek to have sex with men and women. So basically, just saying that women and politicians meddled in the affairs of gay men as a whole, as if sex with children is a gay issue, and that there isn't a distinction between gay men and men who want to fuck little boys. It's insane to me. Let's continue. Boy lovers began to organize for the first time in response to 2 widely publicized incidents in December of 1977, following the arrest of 24 men in Revere for consensual sex with boys, mostly teenagers. So I decided to look into this incident he was writing about, where the mostly teenagers were having consensual sex with adult men, and that led to the start of NAMBLA. June 1977, somewhere in Boston, police entered the home of a man by the name Richard Peluso, 50 years old, who was a self-employed advertiser. In his home, police found hundreds of images of boys 15 and under, and the pictures were of a sexual nature. Police located 64 of the boys in the pictures and took them in for interviews. The boys told them that Peluso filled the role of a father, took them on trips and gave them sports equipment. Police were also told that at least 24 other men had been involved in molesting the boys. The media called it a child molestation ring. A hotline was set up asking the public to report men they thought were pedos, and many people called in accusing men, their neighbors, co-workers, family members, and so on. Many of course accusing innocent men, perhaps only for the sole reason of them being gay. This caused a controversy. In December, the 24 men were arrested, including a child psychiatrist, a former assistant headmaster at a boys' school, a teacher at the same school, and a school bus driver. They were charged ranging from rape, indecent assault, to unnatural acts with children. According to the investigators, all the victims were between 9 and 15 years old and were paid to engage in sexual acts. The authorities said that the ring was operated out of Peluso's apartment. However, only 15 out of the 64 boys testified. So this is where it gets weird, because innocent men were also accused. The pedos and their bodies ran with it and put out this narrative that gay men were being targeted simply for being gay, trying to shift the focus from the abuse of boys to they hate gay men. And guess what? A lot of people took the bait, because the authorities and media had called it a child molestation ring, but it turned out to be a bunch of men that didn't know each other and only knew Peluso. The pedos completely derailed the argument and called it a witch hunt. Well, the complaining by the pedos and their allies worked. The Boston Boys Committee was formed, and David Thorstad was right there protesting and running his mouth. The committee was a bunch of boy lovers and their allies that defended the accused men. They demonstrated on the streets, spoke to the media, fundraised, and got the men legal help, regardless if they believed they were guilty or not. The Boston Boys Committee, in my opinion, was nothing more besides freaks and pedos. I don't know if it was the pressure from the committee, but almost all of the men made deals and got parole without supervision. Only one went to prison. Turns out the vast majority of the men were having sexual contact with two boy prostitutes that were 15, and the connection was through Peluso. One of the pedos later wrote in a newsletter, "Yet, as the case unfolded, it became clear that many of the facts and accusations were fabricated. Most of the men didn't know each other. There was no sex ring. The vast majority of the men had had sex with one of two hustlers in Revere. Hustlers meaning boy prostitutes." Excuse you, pedo? It doesn't matter if the boys got paid or not. They were minors, children, you fucking demon. We don't know how old the boys were when the men started molesting them. We know that a couple of the men simply vanished, fled the state, fled the country, who knows. And we'll never know the extent of what took place. We'll never know how many boys were 9, 10, 11, or whatever age, and what happened to them, and how they are doing today. Again, only 15 out of 64 boys testified. Peluso admitted to having sex with over 200 boys and got 15 years in prison. Child psychiatrist Dr. Donald Allen pleaded guilty to sexual acts with a boy and filming the boy with a camcorder and got a whopping 5 years probation. Arthur Claridge, the 49-year-old teacher, made a deal to snitch on the others and got off. He had been charged with 4 counts of indecent assault and battery of a child under the age of 14, and so on and so forth. In 1978, Thorstad co-founded NAMBLA. NAMBLA's first meeting was held a year later in December of 1978. This is the co-founder, so with no further ado, let's have a look. Welcome. NAMBLA was formed in 1978. It was inspired by the success of a campaign based in Boston's gay community to defend against a local witch hunt. NAMBLA's goal is to end the extreme oppression of men and boys in mutually consensual relationships by building understanding and support for such relationships, educating the general public on the benevolent nature of man-boy love, supporting the liberation of persons of all ages from sexual prejudice and oppression. We know that differences in age do not preclude mutual loving interaction between persons. NAMBLA is strongly opposed to age of consent laws and all other restrictions which deny men and boys the full enjoyment of their bodies and control over their own lives. Man-boy love. Man-boy relationships are based on mutual respect and affection, and strongly desired by both partners. Such relationships do not harm anyone and often entail many benefits for both man and boy. Boy lovers and boys alike respond to the needs of those they love, needs for affection, understanding, and freedom. Now you know what we're dealing with. Let's have a look at the facts page. What do you seek to accomplish? NAMBLA was formed in the belief that if people knew more about the actual nature of typical man-boy love relationships, that there would be less unjust scapegoating and persecution of boys and men who have such relationships. No, that's never gonna happen. Not in a million years will normal, well-adapted people think it's okay for adult, perverted, maladapted men to rape young boys. You better put me in the ground before I will ever accept one of them. Do you believe it's possible for a boy and a man to have a close, even sexual relationship without any harm? Yes, it's possible. It happens every day. Many studies have confirmed that the large majority of sexual contact between boys and older partners are both consensual and harmless. I don't care. Just because a victim doesn't see themselves as a victim doesn't mean that they aren't or weren't one. These repulsive freaks are literally cherry-picking what suits them. Complete confirmation bias. But aren't these relationships always initiated by the adult? No. We know from experience that some boys do initiate sexual contact with adults. This is confirmed by studies, which have found that a substantial percentage of boys' sexual contact with older partners were initiated by the boy. Oh, I see. The child initiated contact, so the child is at fault and by extension can't be a victim of this adult man. And I stole my mom's cigarettes when I was a child. Should I have been able to smoke freely? Why aren't children allowed to drive, drink, and do other things that adults are allowed to? In fact, what's the point in even having parents at all? Most kids don't want to shower or brush their teeth, but according to you, are mature enough to have sex with grown men. Get the fuck out of here. Do you believe there are actually boys who find men attractive that way? It is well established that some boys do find men very attractive. Certainly, plenty of gay men have reported being infatuated during early and middle childhood, 5 to 10 years of age, with masculine icons such as the Marlboro Man and even Peter Graves. Okay, but if a boy comes on to you, wouldn't it be better simply to refuse the advance? If your concern is for the safety of the man, any man in today's climate, then the answer is probably yes. Walk away and stay away and just don't have anything to do with kids in general. But boys take rejection very hard and they take isolation even harder. It has a deeply negative effect on their outlook, which can have lifelong implications. So you're molesting young boys for their sake and their self-confidence so that they don't feel rejected. How noble. No. People like you prey on children that are isolated and seek the warmth from an adult. These people are revolting and the scum of the earth. Almost every link or page you click on, there's an image of a young boy. It could be a photograph, a painting, or a sculpture. They are obsessed with young boys. Everything on this site is about sex. Everything. There are many letters and articles written by children which appear in Boy Speaks Out, published by NAMBLA. It's a pamphlet that I didn't purchase for obvious reasons. In it, there are anecdotal stories from children and their encounters with these pedos. But since I didn't buy the pamphlet, we can't read the full stories, but we can see some of the titles. By the way, the introduction on this page was written by Thorstad, so before we read some of the titles from the children, let's have a look at its intro. Boy lovers are sometimes accused of speaking for boys, rather than allowing boys to speak for themselves. If boys and children in general are denied a voice, this is not the fault of boy lovers, but of the heterosexual authorities. The authors are multiracial and span the teenage years, but none are younger than 13. All the authors have been sexually active with men, so they do not address the thoughts and problems of the boy who would like to, but has not had the opportunity to enjoy sex with a man. This is a hard motherfucking read. Today, the law and public prejudice make little or no distinction between a man who forcibly rapes a child and one who genuinely cares for and loves a boy. Some judges have condemned boy lovers as being worse than murderers, even though their only crime has been to share their body and affection with a boy in a friendship that includes mutually enjoyable sexual experiences. This is a tough read. NAMBLA believes that any child, regardless of age, should have the right to say yes or no to any person. The child should have the right to initiate the relationship, as he often does. No child is harmed by any consensual sexual experience, but children are harmed by society's condemnation and persecution of their bodily pleasures. Stop saying that children have any responsibility for them being preyed on. Again, a child cannot consent. Here are some of the titles of the letters. It shouldn't be a crime to make love, age 12. I'm not going to be kept away from him, age 11. Sex is really beautiful with my friend, age 13. Man, what a feeling, age 14. Because I enjoy it, age 13. He makes me glad I'm gay, age 14. Thank God for boy lovers, age 14. Again, they said all the boys, quote, none are younger than 13. All the authors have been sexually active with men, end quote. So as you heard, there was an 11 and a 12-year-old. Not that it matters, because 13 is just as disturbing, criminal, and wrong. Understand what kind of people visit this site. People that think that having sex/raping a 12-year-old is beautiful. They have a bulletin, aka magazine, and just look at some of the covers. Young boys, more or less dressed, some gazing at the camera. Do you think this is appropriate? Do you think these are normal magazine covers for grown men? Is this normal to anyone? Seriously, is this normal? I can only imagine what's on the inside. 15 famous men who had boy lovers. They mention ancient Greeks, Roman emperors, Da Vinci and others, all involved with boys. But there was one paragraph that I read that made me feel physically ill. Alexander the Great. Among the peace offerings sent to him by the Persians after the death of King Darius was an uncommonly beautiful boy, Bagoas, who had been castrated at an early age to preserve his tender young looks. According to one ancient source, Bagoas, quote, had been loved by Darius and was afterwards to be loved by Alexander. NAMBLA published this little anecdote on their page as if there's something beautiful that a boy was castrated and raped by kings. There is so much more on this site. They are against sex offender registry and again age of consent laws. We can't go through the whole site and the hundreds upon hundreds of links and articles. It would take weeks. Most of the poems, books, songs they recommend entail pederasty and pedophilia. NAMBLA also supports men that have offended against children and have been convicted of said crimes. Prison program. Our prisoner program seeks to provide moral support to incarcerated boy lovers. These people experience a harsh and exceptionally hostile environment. Haha. Good, they're treated like they should be, less than human. Prison justice sounds good to me. We keep in touch with prisoners through a monthly prisoners letter. It includes excerpts from our bulletin and other publications. Those publications, which are legal reading material, have been rejected by many prison mailrooms as detrimental to the rehabilitation of the inmate. Yeah, I wonder why. Because you romanticize something exceptionally depraved. Pen pals. Letters and visits can provide much needed social and psychological support for inmates facing an arbitrary and often brutal prison system who might otherwise lose touch with reality. Prisoners' mail is opened for inspection and usually only checked for contraband. However, the mail is sometimes read. We urgently advise pen pals to avoid writing about any activities, whether real or imagined, that could be considered illegal. Exactly. They are warning these pen pals from sending any sexually explicit material, whether in writing or otherwise. We know perverts have a hard time keeping their inclinations to themselves. You see, they don't want to get caught for encouraging this sick behavior, although they clearly do. This whole site and all the publications are nothing more than egging on pedophiles to share their fantasies with each other. There is a pecking order throughout the criminal justice system. Violent criminals, even murderers and rapists, are given a higher status in the prison population than boy lovers who were convicted of consensual relations with minors. Not people that rape, but I agree, there is a pecking order, and this filth is at the bottom of the pile, as they should be, as they continue to be. No one likes you. Society doesn't even tolerate you. Many states are notorious for returning sex offenders to prison for trivial violations of parole conditions. They are a major contributor to widespread overcrowding of jails and prison facilities. Overcrowding of prisons is now your concern. You should be happy that's an option for your kind. One of the factors that can add to a prisoner's despair is the loss of all social and family support. To all the families out there that pull their support from these creatures, good for you. I applaud you. They have a service where their members or people that support them can send in their anecdotal stories and experiences, and they publish them. Email received by NAMBLA. I'm a heterosexual hebephile, but I believe many boy lovers can relate to my experience. I used to work at a concession stand at a facility. There was one girl I had always thought was very pretty, with an ultra-confident personality to match. One day, when she was 11. By this time, she had started to become the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. She was there late as I was cleaning up. We talked for about 20 minutes before her mom came to get her, and she refused to leave. I was freaking out inside because I knew she had a crush on me. As she was walking away, she turned around and looked at me in a way no girl or woman has ever looked at me, even my exes when they were in love. I stayed up all night thinking about that look. The next day, she came up to me and spent the entire rest of the evening hanging out with me. For almost a year, she spent pretty much every second of her free time with me. It was the happiest time of my life. We became so close. We would talk for hours, goof around, cook terrible food, and force each other to eat it, and laugh. We laughed a lot. She clearly wanted to be with me, and I her. So how come I'm not happy? If love is supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, then why am I sitting in the shower with the heat turned all the way up? If love is supposed to make you happy, bring people together and shine a light on your life, then why am I spending my nights crying all alone in the dark? If love is supposed to take all your pain away and lift you up in the sky, then why am I on the floor in agony? If love is supposed to feel like heaven, then why the hell am I writing this email? Man, fuck you. Fuck you and fuck your love. I hope you have a disgusting life behind bars being someone's booty boy. Anyways, let's continue. I'm in desperate need of a hug, but all I'm greeted with are the cruel crossed arms of society. People with a propensity for actually abusive behavior are going to do so regardless of whatever laws or restrictions are in place. Nobody is actually being protected here. All this does is deprive kids of their freedom or agency and punish people like us who just want to love someone and make them happy. It begs the question, who is really being abused here? Man, fuck you. NAMBLA's reply, of course we can relate, as can everyone who has had unrequited love. In your case, it also appeared mutual. One has to be blind not to have noticed at some point amorous designs from youngsters of either sex towards adults. Society, of course, constructs rationales for dismissing such feelings as insignificant. These are some motherfucking weirdos. Listen, I never wanted to diddle a kid, so I can't relate to unrequited love from a child. I'm going to read 2 more of these epic love stories. There are plenty on the site, some are quite long, others are just too repulsive to read out loud. So if you want to murder your soul and any faith in humanity, go on and read them on the website. So listen to this next title, Molested and Glad. Fantastic. Dear NAMBLA, when I was 13 years old, I had my first sexual experience with someone older, my adult camp counselor. He had been my counselor for 3 years, was a school teacher, and was very kind to me. My first year in camp, I was very homesick, and this kind and gentle man would hold me close to him in private and allow me the dignity as I cried onto his shoulder. He held me, stroked my back, but in no way did he take advantage of me. Over the next 2 years, I had my parents request this man, whom I believed to have been in his late 30s, to be my counselor because I liked him and thought he was a very nice man. During my 3rd and final year, I began having sexual desires for him, wanted him to kiss me and tried to give him hints. My project was to climb in bed with this man. My chance finally came on a rainy night when all of us went to bed. I couldn't sleep, and instead I went to his private quarters where he invited me to climb under the sheets. He finally took the chance and fondled me, finally kissing, then me over and over again. It was the most exciting sexual experience I've ever had. The next day, and for the final week of camp, we reacted toward each other as if nothing had happened. I left camp, never to see or hear from him again. As a gay man in my early 30s, I am not now attracted to children, but to older men, perhaps thinking of my counselor. I was not molested, I was loved, and I feel I am better for it. This delusional man doesn't understand that he was raped. Of course you didn't hear from him anymore. He used you. He saw a lonely, homesick, sad boy that was curious about adulthood, and he took full advantage. How can you not see that? And what happened to the love? The love. The man-boy love. I feel so sorry for the child you were, but I hate the adult you've become, the adult you allow yourself to be. Please don't ever have children. You are not capable of protecting them. You're not. Love is good. Dear NAMBLA, I will be out of this jail in 9 months, and I will lend my services as needed to further the fight for freedom to choose whom a man as well as a boy can be with and love. I myself have been involved in a relationship with a boy since he was 8 years old. He's 16 now, and we still have the same love, care, and joy. Foolish people may think he's too young to make up his mind, or that I made his mind up for him. To that I say bullshit. Everything has been consensual. Plus, we didn't even have any sexual contact until the year of his sweet 16th birthday. And boy was it sweet. Ugh. This kid is very normal. He does things all boys his age do. He has a girlfriend and a boyfriend, me. I respect him and he respects me. Maybe one day he'll get married and have kids of his own. But for now, he says, don't fret. He'll always love me for the things I've taught him, the love I've given him so freely, and the happiness we've shared with each other. So in closing, I say keep sending the bulletins. After I read them, I send them to my friend and love. If loving Robbie is wrong, I don't want to be right. Courage to all the other boys, men, girls, and women that just want to love each other. You are not alone. One day, these fools will see that love is good in whatever form it comes in. So this felon is a groomer and has no plans on stopping. He will get out and he will follow his sick urges. He's a grown man that thinks that he is the boyfriend of a 16-year-old kid he groomed from the age of 8. You can't blur the lines between adults and children. And now to the last chapter, which is super sad and super tragic. Jeffrey Curley. In 1997, Barbara and Robert Curley's 10-year-old son Jeffrey was kidnapped and murdered by 2 men, Salvatore Sicari, 21, and Charlie Janes, 22. Little Jeffrey knew Sicari from the neighborhood as he lived only a block away. The 2 men befriended Jeffrey in April of 1997 and began grooming him, taking him on car rides and taking him to diners to get food. In October, 6 months after their first encounter, they took Jeffrey for a ride. That day, Jeffrey said, "You guys are my best friends." According to prosecutors, they offered to replace his stolen bicycle with a new one in exchange for sex. When Jeffrey refused, they drove him to the back of a supermarket, quote, "so we could have privacy and murder Jeffrey," end quote. Then James got in the back seat, wrapped his arm around Jeffrey's shoulder and pressed a gasoline-soaked rag against his face until he suffocated. The murderers then placed Jeffrey's body in the trunk of their Cadillac and drove to Jane's apartment in Manchester, New Hampshire, where Sicari sexually assaulted the child's corpse. The 2 men then placed the body inside a container filled with cement and lime, drove to Maine and dropped it in the Great Works River. The container was found days later. NAMBLA material and a NAMBLA membership card was found in the back seat of the car and in Jane's apartment. Upon information immediately prior to the murder, James accessed NAMBLA's website at the Boston Public Library. And in a diary in Jane's apartment, he had written about seducing young boys and told how NAMBLA changed his life. James wrote, quote, "This was a turning point in discovery of myself. NAMBLA's bulletin helped me to become aware of my own sexuality and acceptance of it," end quote. The monsters got life in prison. The Curleys filed a civil suit against NAMBLA in 2000, seeking $200 million in damages. It stated that NAMBLA's adult-child sexual relationship propaganda, including Jane's viewing of the group's website, caused his violent predatory behavior and urge to have sex with and rape young male children. Quote, "By its publications, meetings and website, NAMBLA encourages its members to rape male children," end quote. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, stepped in to defend NAMBLA as a free speech matter. John Reinstein, director of the ACLU Boston, said, "Although NAMBLA, quote, may extol conduct which is currently illegal, there was nothing on its website that advocated or incited the commission of any illegal acts, including murder or rape," end quote. I just wanted to add that there has been plenty of letters, bulletins, emails, etc. published on the website over the years. I saw new publishings just last week in January of 2023 that I think advocate for illegal acts. Also, 2 of the letters I read to you earlier were published in the 90s, so they were available for James to read. Molested and Glad was published in 1991 and Love is Good was published in 1992. You make of it what you want and draw your own conclusions. I think it's egging on sick people, but who the hell am I compared to the ACLU? Also, can we just talk about the logo and how the B for boy is in lowercase, small letter? It is so yuck. Oh, degenerates. The ACLU said that the suit against NAMBLA highlighted censorship of unpopular speech about sexuality. I don't see pedophilia as a sexuality, but I could be wrong. According to Wendy Kaminer, a longtime ACLU executive, the case was based on widespread biases about a supposed link between homosexuality and pedophilia. Wendy, does it really matter whether we're talking about gay or straight people here? We are talking about adults molesting children. The focus is on NAMBLA, Man-Boy Love Association. You don't get a pass due to your race, gender, sexuality, religion, or perversion, you dumb bitch. Despite the claims, the NAMBLA website displayed no erotica, no conspiracies to rape or incitements to violence. The court dismissed the suit based on specific legal issue that NAMBLA is not organized as a corporation. The Curleys continued the suit as a wrongful death action against individual NAMBLA members, but dropped the lawsuit in 2008. They had only one witness prepared to testify that NAMBLA somehow incited Janes in the murder of their son. Unfortunately, it was ruled that the witness was not competent to testify. Robert Curley said, quote, "That was the only link we were counting on. When they ruled that out, that was the end of the line." End quote. So there you go. Horrendous. Again, understand the people that engage on this site. Are they all murderers and rapists? No, but I can guarantee that most of them are pedophiles and a danger to all children. All children. They walk among you. They are waiting to prey on your child. It's just so baffling. How is this site still up and running? How? To any child, teenager, young adult or adult watching this who went through this as a child, it was not your fault. The shame you feel is not meant for you. It's not yours to carry. This is what they do. Even if you were curious as a child, the adult didn't have the right to touch you. Even if you didn't feel bad immediately after, doesn't make what happened to you any less predatory. Do you understand? These monsters took your childhood from you, robbed you of your innocence, curiosity that should be between peers, people your age, okay? Not your adult teacher, priest, neighbor, uncle. Now you do everything and anything to not let them take anything more from you. You do whatever it takes to heal yourself, but what you're not going to do is blame yourself. The next time you blame yourself, you look at a little child and you think like this: if I was to blame for my abuse, so is this little kid if they ever get raped by a grown man. You understand? You were a child. There will be 4 parts in total. So in my next video, part 2, we will continue with this subject. Not NAMBLA, but this attempt to normalize pedophilia and what goes on YouTube, Instagram, and other social media sites that children and young people frequent, and how brazen these pedos and their supporters have become, how they are trying to affiliate with the LGBTQ+ community, and how kids are being more or less groomed. There is so much going on, and reading and researching is beyond aggravating, hurtful, and draining. Please like and maybe even share this video. The word needs to be spread. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye!